In the middle of an ordinary day, someone speaks over you in a conversation. A coworker undermines your effort without a second thought, or a stranger online leaves a cutting comment that lingers longer than it should. You notice the tightness in your chest, the impulse to snap back or rehearse arguments in your head for hours afterward. These moments are common, yet they quietly drain focus and peace. The sting feels personal, even when it probably isn't. Most people carry that low-level tension forward, letting it shape their mood, their next interaction, even their view of themselves. Stoicism cuts through this noise by pointing directly at the one thing that actually decides your quality of life: how you choose to respond when respect is withheld. If this resonates with you, like the video and subscribe for clear, practical Stoic tools that strengthen your mind in everyday life. Number 1. The hidden measure of character. Your reaction to disrespect is not a minor detail of personality. It is one of the clearest indicators of your current level of self-mastery. When someone dismisses you, the immediate feeling that arises is automatic. Yet what you do with that feeling reveals the depth of your inner training. Stoics like Epictetus taught that externals such as words or gestures hold no power unless you hand it over. The person who flies into defense or silent resentment is still treating their reputation as something fragile and external. True rank shows itself in the calm space you maintain between the trigger and your reply. Many spend years chasing status, money, or influence only to discover these things collapse under pressure if the mind remains untrained. A calm response to disrespect signals that your sense of worth rests inside, not in other people's approval. This stability cannot be faked for long. In quiet moments after the event, you can see whether you return to your own purpose or stay tangled in the other person's behavior. That honest self-check is where real growth begins. Everyday life constantly offers small tests. The driver who cuts you off, the friend who forgets an important date, the boss who criticizes unfairly. These are not interruptions to your peace. They are mirrors showing where your mind still seeks control over what is not yours. Stoicism trains you to look at the mirror without turning away. The discomfort you feel is useful information about where your training needs attention. The person of higher rank does not waste energy proving they were right or demanding fairness in the moment. They recognize that demanding the world treat them a certain way is the surest path to constant disappointment. Instead, they focus on the only domain they command: their own judgment, effort, and character. This shift feels subtle at first, but compounds into unshakable steadiness over time. Respect from others is pleasant when it comes, but relying on it as a measure of your value keeps you permanently vulnerable. The Stoic alternative is to build an internal standard so clear and consistent that external disrespect loses its sting. This does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means caring deeply about the right things and refusing to let the wrong ones rent space in your mind. Over repeated practice, your default response changes. What once triggered hours of rumination now passes through with minimal disruption. People around you notice the difference, even if they cannot name it. You begin to operate at a different rank, not through force or status, but through the quiet authority of a mind that answers only to its own principles. Number 2, why disrespect triggers us. Disrespect hurts because it touches the deep human desire to matter. The mind interprets it as a threat to social standing or self-image, releasing the same ancient stress response once useful for physical survival. In modern life, that response usually creates more problems than it solves. The Stoics observed this pattern clearly and chose to separate the event from the judgment we add to it. The event is neutral. The judgment that this person should not treat me this way is what creates the suffering. Most of us were never taught to question that judgment. We absorb the idea that we must defend our image at all costs. This leaves us emotionally dependent on the behavior of everyone around us. A truly free person recognizes that other people's rudeness, ignorance, or insecurity belongs to them. Your rank rises the moment you stop carrying it. This liberation feels uncomfortable at first because it requires giving up the familiar drama of being wronged. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. After a disrespectful encounter, the mind often replays the scene, adds extra meaning, and projects future consequences. Each replay strengthens the emotional reaction. Training interrupts this loop early. You acknowledge the sting, note the automatic interpretation, then deliberately return attention to the present task, or to a principle you choose to live by. The desire for respect becomes dangerous when it turns into an unspoken demand. Demands on reality guarantee frustration. Stoicism replaces demands with preferences. You prefer to be treated well, yet you do not tie your inner state to whether that preference is met. This distinction separates the amateur from the seasoned practitioner. The seasoned mind stays light because its peace was never placed on unstable ground. Understanding the trigger removes its mystery. Disrespect is rarely about you. It usually reflects the other person's limited awareness, poor mood, or habitual patterns. Seeing this clearly creates natural compassion mixed with detachment. You respond from strength rather than wounded pride. That response itself becomes part of your character and raises your true rank. Consistent awareness of this mechanism turns everyday friction into training opportunities. Each encounter becomes a chance to practice the skill that matters most, keeping your mind free regardless of how others behave. Over months and years, this practice forges a resilience that external circumstances cannot easily shake. Number 3. What different reactions reveal? A reactive outburst reveals a mind still ruled by externals. The need to immediately correct, punish, or withdraw shows that self-worth is being borrowed from the moment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that other people's opinions are not his concern. When you act as if they are, you temporarily lower your own rank to match the level of the provocation. Silent resentment that simmers for days reveals a different weakness, the inability to release what cannot be changed. This quiet bitterness consumes energy and clouds judgment long after the original event. The Stoic approach is to address what is yours to address and then move forward cleanly. Holding on to injury is a form of self-disrespect. Overly polite compliance that masks inner defeat shows another rank. Some people swallow disrespect to avoid conflict, yet inside they feel diminished. True strength is neither aggressive nor submissive. It is measured, deliberate, and guided by reason rather than fear or anger. This balanced response earns quiet respect over time without demanding it. The highest visible rank appears as calm clarity. You may address the issue directly if it matters, or you may simply continue with your own purpose unaffected. Observers sense the difference even when no words are spoken. This presence cannot be manufactured on the spot. It is the result of repeated private decisions to value virtue above ego protection. Some reactions combine multiple layers. Initial anger followed by days of overthinking and eventual withdrawal. These mixed responses are common because most people are in the middle of their training. Recognizing the pattern without self-judgment allows steady progress. Each time you choose a better response, you strengthen the neural pathways of self-mastery. Your true rank is not fixed. Every encounter gives you data and a new opportunity to practice. The person who uses that data, gradually shifts from being controlled by circumstances to moving through them with steady intention. This shift is visible in how lightly you carry offenses and how fully you engage with what actually matters. Number 4. Building the mind that cannot be disrespected. Stoic training begins with small, repeated exercises. When disrespect occurs, pause and ask yourself what part of this is truly within your control. The other person's behavior is not. Your interpretation, your words, and your next action are. Directing attention here prevents the mind from spiraling outward. Reading and reflecting on the Stoic texts daily reinforces the right principles until they become automatic. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations as private reminders. You can do the same. Keep a short list of truths that steady you when emotions rise. Review them often so they are ready when needed. Physical practices support mental ones. A consistent routine of exercise, cold exposure, or deliberate discomfort builds the habit of enduring unpleasant sensations without collapse. This translates directly to enduring unpleasant social moments with greater composure. The body and mind train together. Journaling after difficult interactions helps extract the lesson. What did you feel? Where did your judgment add unnecessary pain? What would the wiser version of yourself have done? Honest reflection turns experience into wisdom instead of resentment. Voluntary discomfort with reputation is powerful. Practice letting minor slights go uncorrected. Notice how the world does not end. This builds proof that your peace does not depend on winning every small battle. The freedom that follows is profound. Over time, these practices raise your baseline. Disrespect still appears, but it no longer hijacks your day. You respond, if at all, from a place of deliberate choice rather than compulsion. This is the practical meaning of higher rank, a mind that remains its own master. Number 5, living at your true rank. At higher ranks of inner development, your focus shifts from protecting image to fulfilling responsibility. You become less interested in how you are perceived and more interested in how well you execute your own standards. This reorientation brings deep relief and clearer energy for meaningful work. Relationships improve paradoxically. When you stop needing respect, you can give genuine attention without keeping score. Others sense the absence of neediness and often respond with more authentic regard. Even when they don't, your well-being remains untouched. Challenges that once seemed personal now appear as neutral data about the world. This perspective allows faster recovery and better decisions. You waste less time on ego defense and invest more in creation, contribution, and self-improvement. The ultimate Stoic insight is that your true rank has nothing to do with titles, followers, or social feedback. It is measured solely by how closely your daily thoughts, words, and actions align with reason and virtue. Disrespect becomes just another external event, like weather, that you navigate without losing course. Living this way does not make you immune to feeling the initial sting. It does mean the sting no longer controls the outcome. You acknowledge it, learn what is useful, and return to what matters. This freedom is available to anyone willing to train consistently. The path is simple but not easy. It requires daily recommitment and honest self-examination. Yet each step upward brings greater steadiness, clearer purpose, and deeper satisfaction. Your reaction to disrespect will continue to show your true rank. Make that rank one you're proud to carry. Number 6, the hidden costs of poor reactions. Reacting poorly to disrespect carries a steep price that extends far beyond the single moment of tension. Every time you allow another person's words or actions to pull you into anger, defensiveness, or prolonged rumination, you surrender fragments of your attention, energy, and time. These small surrenders accumulate quietly. What begins as a brief emotional spike can derail an entire afternoon of focused work, damage relationships through sharp words spoken in haste, or erode your own self-respect through repeated patterns of weakness. Stoicism reveals this cost with unflinching clarity, so you can choose differently. The mind that remains untrained treats every instance of disrespect as a genuine threat to its value. This creates a cycle of hypervigilance where you scan interactions for slights and prepare countermeasures that are rarely needed. The mental bandwidth consumed by this scanning and preparation steals resources from deeper pursuits, creative work, meaningful conversations, and genuine presence with the people who matter. Over months and years, this hidden tax prevents many capable individuals from reaching their full potential, not because of external obstacles, but because their inner state remains unstable. Physical consequences follow emotional ones. The elevated stress response triggered by perceived disrespect raises cortisol levels, tightens muscles, disrupts sleep, and weakens immune function. What feels like justified emotional protection actually becomes slow self-harm. The Stoics understood the unity of mind and body and trained both together. By learning to meet disrespect with measured calm, you protect not only your character, but also your long-term health and vitality. Social costs appear more gradually but prove equally damaging. People notice when someone is easily provoked or carries lingering resentment. They begin to walk carefully around you or distance themselves to avoid unnecessary drama. Opportunities for collaboration, friendship, or advancement slip away unnoticed. In contrast, the person who responds with steady composure earns natural authority. Others feel safer and more open in their presence, creating stronger alliances and deeper connections built on respect rather than fear or obligation. Perhaps the greatest cost is the gradual erosion of personal freedom. When your emotional state depends on how others treat you, you become a prisoner to their moods, ignorance, or insecurities. Stoicism offers a path to radical independence by placing your inner condition firmly under your own control. This freedom does not arrive overnight. It develops through consistent practice of separating events from judgments and choosing responses aligned with your principles rather than momentary feelings. The awareness of these costs becomes powerful fuel for change. Once you clearly see what poor reactions steal from your life, the motivation to train grows stronger. Each successful instance of calm response becomes proof that a better way exists. You begin to protect your peace as fiercely as any valuable possession, knowing that your true rank and quality of life depend on it more than any external achievement ever could. Number 7. Stoic principles for modern disrespect. The core Stoic distinction between what is up to us and what is not provides the foundation for handling disrespect with dignity. Other people's opinions, tones, and behaviors fall squarely into the category of things outside your control. Your interpretation of those behaviors, however, remains entirely yours. This simple truth, repeated by Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, cuts through modern complexities where communication happens instantly across distances and social hierarchies feel blurred. Applying it consistently elevates your rank immediately. In today's environment of constant connectivity, disrespect often arrives through screens, curt emails, dismissive comments, or ignored messages. The Stoic response begins with deliberate delay. Instead of firing back while emotions run high, create space to examine the situation rationally. Ask what evidence actually exists for malicious intent versus simple carelessness or differing priorities. This pause prevents escalation and preserves your reputation as someone who operates with clarity rather than reactivity. Stoic premeditatio malorum, the practice of anticipating challenges, prepares you for inevitable encounters with disrespect. By mentally rehearsing difficult interactions beforehand, you reduce their emotional shock value. You enter situations expecting that some people will act rudely or thoughtlessly because human beings are imperfect. This expectation does not breed cynicism, but realistic readiness that allows you to respond from strength instead of surprise. The concept of amor fati, love of fate, takes this preparation deeper. Rather than merely tolerating moments of disrespect, you can learn to view them as necessary parts of your training. Each encounter becomes raw material for building resilience, patience, and wisdom. This perspective transforms potential victims into students, changing the entire emotional texture of daily friction. What once felt like pointless suffering now serves a clear purpose in your development. Virtue as the highest good provides the ultimate shield. When your primary concern is acting with justice, courage, wisdom, and temperance, external disrespect loses its power to define you. You measure success not by whether others treated you well, but by whether you conducted yourself according to your standards. This internal scorecard creates unshakable confidence that no amount of praise or criticism from outside can match. Daily reflection strengthens these principles until they operate automatically. Evening reviews of challenging interactions reveal where you succeeded and where old habits still surfaced. Over time, this honest accounting accelerates growth. The mind that once defaulted to defensiveness gradually defaults to calm assessment and principled action. This is how ancient wisdom becomes lived reality in a modern world full of new forms of disrespect. Number 8. Turning disrespect into fuel for growth. Disrespect contains useful information if you develop the skill to extract it without becoming emotionally entangled. Sometimes it reveals blind spots in your own communication or behavior that genuinely need attention. Other times, it exposes the limited perspective or insecurity of the other person, offering insight into human nature. The Stoic practitioner approaches each instance with curiosity rather than immediate self-defense, turning potential poison into practical wisdom. Channeling the energy of these moments towards self-improvement represents one of the highest uses of Stoic discipline. Instead of plotting revenge or seeking validation, redirect that surge of emotion into harder training, deeper work, or clearer goal setting. The initial heat of indignation can power intense focus during exercise, creative projects, or skill development. Many of history's most accomplished individuals transform slights into extraordinary achievement through this exact alchemy. Building anti-fragility means not only recovering from disrespect, but actually improving because of it. Each time you handle a difficult interaction well, your capacity for future challenges expands. Your nervous system learns that these moments are survivable and even manageable. Confidence grows not from avoiding conflict, but from repeatedly proving to yourself that you can face it with integrity. This creates a virtuous cycle where higher rank becomes its own reward. The long view reveals how today's disrespect often becomes irrelevant in the broader arc of your life. Months or years later, the specific words or actions that once stung lose their power completely. What remains is the memory of how you responded and the character you strengthened in that moment. This perspective helps you allocate emotional energy more intelligently, investing heavily in responses that compound positively over time. Maintaining strict personal standards while releasing attachment to outcomes distinguishes mature practice. You continue showing up with excellence regardless of how others behave. Their disrespect does not lower your effort or integrity. Over time, this consistency becomes noticeable and often shifts how people treat you, though you remain detached from that result as your primary motivation. The deepest growth occurs when you reach the point where disrespect no longer surprises or destabilizes you. You see it as a normal feature of human interaction rather than a personal attack. This mature understanding brings profound peace and allows full engagement with life without constant emotional armor. Your energy flows toward creation and contribution instead of protection and defense. Number 9. Clear signs of rising inner rank. One unmistakable sign of rising rank is the shortening duration of emotional disturbance after disrespect occurs. Where you once carried resentment for days or weeks, you now return to baseline within minutes or hours. This compression of recovery time reflects genuine progress in mental training. Your mind has learned to process the event more efficiently and release what cannot be changed. Another indicator appears in your reduced need to explain or justify yourself to others. The lower-ranked mind feels compelled to correct every misunderstanding or defend against every slight. The higher-ranked mind selects its battles carefully and often chooses silence or brief, dignified responses. This selective engagement conserves energy and projects natural authority that needs no constant validation. You will notice yourself observing disrespectful behavior with greater detachment and even occasional compassion. Instead of personalizing the attack, you see the fear, ignorance, or pain driving the other person. This broader perspective does not make you passive, but frees you from unnecessary emotional involvement. Clarity replaces reactivity as your default operating mode. Improved boundary setting without aggression marks another advancement. You address genuine issues directly and calmly when they matter, yet you no longer feel compelled to engage with every minor provocation. This balanced approach protects your time and energy while maintaining self-respect. People learn that crossing certain lines has consequences, but those consequences come from strength rather than emotional volatility. A subtler sign is the growing alignment between your private thoughts and public actions. You think and speak with greater consistency, because your sense of worth no longer fluctuates with external feedback. This congruence creates personal power that others sense, even when they cannot explain it. Your presence carries quiet weight regardless of titles or status. Perhaps the strongest evidence of higher rank is the genuine enjoyment and focus you experience in daily life. Disrespect still appears, but it no longer dominates your attention or dictates your mood. You have reclaimed ownership of your inner world and can direct it toward meaningful pursuits. This freedom represents the practical payoff of consistent Stoic practice. Number 10. The quiet freedom of true self-mastery. At the highest levels of practice, disrespect becomes almost irrelevant to your inner state. You acknowledge it as a feature of reality without allowing it to rent space in your mind. This does not mean emotional numbness, but rather precise emotional regulation guided by reason. The freedom this brings cannot be purchased or granted by others. It must be earned through repeated, deliberate choices in difficult moments. This freedom creates space for deeper presence in all areas of life. Conversations become richer when you are not mentally preparing counterarguments or nursing wounds. Work flows more creatively when energy is not leaking toward past grievances. Relationships deepen because you offer attention unburdened by the need to manage your image constantly. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. Living from this place of mastery influences others more powerfully than forceful demands ever could. People are drawn to those who seem genuinely at peace with themselves. Your calm example becomes a quiet teaching that demonstrates what self-mastery looks like in practice. Some will admire it, others may test it, but your response remains consistent because it flows from deeply internalized principles. The journey never truly ends, yet each plateau brings satisfaction and renewed motivation. You look back at earlier versions of yourself who were controlled by external opinions and feel grateful for the distance traveled. This gratitude reinforces the daily disciplines that made progress possible. Stoicism becomes less like a philosophy you study and more like a way of being you embody. True self-mastery means your rank remains stable regardless of circumstances. Praise does not inflate you, and criticism does not diminish you. You operate from an internal standard that serves as both compass and anchor. Disrespect may still sting momentarily as a natural human reaction, yet it no longer determines your direction or diminishes your peace. This is the quiet power available to anyone willing to do the work. Your reaction to disrespect will always reveal your current rank. Through patient, consistent training, you can make that rank one of genuine mastery, calm, free, and firmly grounded in your own character. The path is open. The choice remains yours in every interaction. Your reaction to disrespect is one of the clearest measures of your inner rank. It reveals whether you are still controlled by external events or whether you have built the steady self-mastery that defines a Stoic life. Every day presents new opportunities to practice this distinction. The words, tones, and gestures of others remain outside your control, but your judgment and response belong entirely to you. Choosing calm reason over reactive emotion is how you raise your true rank and protect the only thing that truly matters: your character. Real progress comes through quiet, consistent practice. Start with small moments. Notice the impulse to snap back or withdraw, then deliberately choose a better response. Over time, these repeated choices reshape your habits and strengthen your mind. The sting of disrespect may still arise, but it no longer dictates your mood, your focus, or your direction. You begin to move through life with greater freedom, clarity, and purpose. This is the practical reward of Stoic training. The path is open to anyone willing to do the work. Your true rank is not granted by titles, money, or approval. It is built daily through the way you meet challenges, especially the quiet ones involving disrespect. Choose to live according to your own principles rather than other people's behavior. In doing so, you cultivate a strength that no external force can take away. Stand firm in that understanding and carry your rank with quiet confidence.